It's always fun to make fun of Donald Trump, but here's a new one, because it turns out Donald Trump is a giant liar about his finances, which we've known for some time, but now the story is starting to get made. So here's a deposition from Donald Trump from a few years back, and this story now starting to be told. This deposition is from 2007, from December of 2007, and this is one of the questions from the deposition from the lawyer. The lawyer asked this: "Let me just ask you about the first sentence here. Quote, Trump relentlessly bloviating about his developments. This is going to be the biggest, best, most amazing," kind of thing Donald Trump would say. "Leads people to assume he exaggerates his net worth." And then the question: do you see that? And Trump: yes. "Do you know what bloviating means?" The question to Trump. And Trump answers: "Well, I'm not sure there's an exact definition." Right, it's a little amorphous, the definition of bloviating, just like the definition of amorphous. So he says, "I'm not sure there's an exact definition, but I would imagine that's what it means." And then the questioner goes, "Exaggeration?" And then Trump says, "Could be, yeah. I mean, exaggeration, not really what bloviating means." And then the questioner, "Lying?" And Trump goes, "No." Okay, it was in a libel suit. Notorious for its lack of modesty, Donald Trump has long flaunted his wealth and touted his net worth as a multi-billionaire. Of course, everybody knows that, and it turns out here are the number of lies Donald Trump has told. By the way, the Comedy Central wrote, here's his, for example, I barely need to give you an example. Trump says, "What's the difference between Donald Trump's hair and a wet raccoon?" Trump says, "A wet raccoon doesn't have $7 billion in the bank." Despite Trump's own claim that he's worth about $7 billion, last September, Forbes magazine, which has the top 400 richest people in the world, richest people in America, estimated his worth at $2.5 billion, $2.4 billion. So Trump added $4.5 billion to his net worth. In a defamation lawsuit filed by Trump, has numerous examples of him stretching his success in real estate. Former New York Times editor and a reporter, Timothy O'Brien, he's the current Huffington Post national editor, wrote in his 2005 book, Trump Nation, that the developer was probably worth $150 to $250 million rather than the typical estimates of $2 to $3 billion. So this guy says 150 to 250 million instead of 2 to 3 billion. Now Trump then went ahead and sued O'Brien for libel, for saying that it was only 150 to 250 million, saying that the lower figure killed some potential deals and damaged his reputation. Good. Anyway, the case was dismissed. Trump filed appeal. Decision there is pending. And Trump's deposition, that's the one we just read from, obtained by the Huffington Post and CNN. In 2005, more lies. Trump claimed he was worth $3.5 billion. That was so now he says his worth has doubled in 6 years. Aren't we in a recession, by the way? But Trump says his worth has doubled. Trump claimed he was worth $3.5 billion. Now says he's worth $7 billion. But a financial analyst by North Fork Bank estimated his worth at $1.2 billion. He said $3.5 billion, so he tripled it. Previous year, when he was claiming a net worth in excess of $3 billion, Deutsche Bank estimated his worth lower at $788 million. So again, he quadrupled it. $788 million, he makes it $3 billion. Asked in a deposition about his statements in 2007 that his net worth was $8 billion, Trump conceded, "I don't know, I don't think so." You said it! "I don't know, I don't think so. Maybe I'm adding $4 or $5 billion worth." I mean, I'd almost give him a break if he said I'm adding a billion. 8 billion, maybe it's only 7 billion. Who says maybe I'm adding 4 or 5 billion worth? You know, Joe Biden is famous saying about the budget, a billion here, a billion there. Pretty soon you're talking about real money. But Joe Biden was making a point about how we waste money. Joe Biden was being deliberately clever. Donald Trump's not being clever. "I don't know, I don't think so." They're quoting you. "Maybe I'm adding $4 or $5 billion. Billion. What an asshole. $3 billion for the value of a brand, he says, but I don't know. Added 3, 4, 5 billion for the value of a brand. Jeffrey Toobin, contributor for CNN, says told Elliot Spitzer Thursday of this week that the description could be used against Trump by his GOP opponents politically. They could beat him over the head with this, you know, that he's a giant liar and says he's a great businessman, but he's a liar. which would fit in with the giant sort of atmosphere of corporate malfeasance and deceit that corporate America is ready to sort of just gun at the American people. Among the deposition's most glaring examples, it says here, this is a piece that pulled from Huffington Post, because again, Timothy O'Brien, now the senior economics editor there, of Trump's fondness for exaggeration, asked why he claimed several media accounts that he had 50% interest in the massive Riverside South project on Manhattan's Upper West Side. That was when I was in graduate school, that area was getting massively redone, and Trump says that he's got a 50% interest in it. He actually had a much smaller interest. So he's claiming 50% interest, and then again, here's his quote, well, I own 30%. But because of the fact that I put no money up, follow this, he says 50%, and then he goes, well, I own 30%. But because of the fact I put no money up, that 30% is equated to 50%. Fuzzy math. At another point, quizzed about his claim to CNN's Larry King that he earned over $1 million from a speech he gave to the Learning Annex. I love this. It's a speech. First of all, what's the Learning Annex doing paying Donald Trump any money? For 50%, he owned 30%, and then he goes, yeah, it's Joe Lieberman finishing 5th and saying he finished 3rd. 50% is 30% is 50%. So Learning Annex, he tells Larry King the Learning Annex paid him $1 million. Trump admits he was actually paid $400,000 in cash. And then he said that but the annex's promotional expenses puts his payment in the $1 million range. Promotional expenses weren't to you. What are you talking about? Who is this clown? Why is he lying? First of all, why is the Learning Annex paying Donald Trump $1,400,000? Anyway, so in November of 2007, he writes a letter to the Wall Street Journal to complain about a story on his net worth, explaining that a development in Hawaii was a huge success. My tower in Waikiki was 100% sold out with $729 million in sales. 5 hours, a record. You can hear him say it. It's a record. 5 hours, 730 units. Gone! Donald Trump apparently alive in 1931. I tell you, I sold 729 units in 5 hours. Gone like that, I say. Yet he admitted in the deposition that he doesn't actually own the building. He had a licensing agreement with the real owners. What is wrong with this guy? At another moment, asked about $18.3 million in insurance proceeds he'd received due to hurricane damage to his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. I think that's near West Palm Beach. In 2005, he said he never felt obligated to turn that money over to the club or to spend all the money on repairs. He just took $18 million from the insurance company. His lawyer obviously says it's all not true and that the Trump brand is worth so much, which I guess it probably is, but that doesn't quite make up for the fact that he's a giant douchebag liar and meets the hair standard as much as anybody else in the history of the planet.